What's up, guys? Today I want to talk a little bit about waxing. There's a lot of questions about waxing, and I'm not going to go too in depth into the rigorous aspects, but I'm going to lay out the basics because there's a lot of people wondering about waxing, and I want to just lend some insights. It's going to depend on what step you are in the process of a case. So, for example, this is a try-in. You'll see one side had to be reset, and sometimes when you send it out to the patient, you have to reset all the teeth. For example, this one. Now, this is basically starting from scratch. We have our bite block back. It has our midline marked. The dentist marked it. And it has our registry. We can tell where the lower bites into the upper. Now, you want to just mark the midline on the model. That way, when you take away your bite block, you have the midline still marked, and you want to set your pin to start with. You set this so that you have the right height. So when you're finishing this down later and tapping it in, you'll be able to tell what height it needs to be at. Now you want to start by looking at your tooth cabinet and finding the right shade and the right mold. Now typically the dentist is going to give you the shade and you'll just kind of match the mold or size of the tooth. Sometimes you'll have to go based on what you have. And so when you pick it out, though, if you have anything existing in the mouth, you can try it up against those to see how close your shade is. Because sometimes you will have to change depending on how it matches. When you have your teeth picked out, you have the posterior teeth and the anterior teeth. The posterior teeth are just the back teeth, and the anterior are the front. So the upper just has two centrals, two laterals, and two cuspids or canines, and you can tell by the curves of them after you get used to the shapes of which side they go on. The posteriors have bicuspids, the second bis, and then your molars. All right, funny thing, if you remember the movie The Hangover, in it one of the characters is a dentist, and when he wakes up, one of his teeth are missing. And he looks in the mirror, and the first thing he says is, "My lateral incisor's gone." And it's funny because everybody's laughing that he's missing a tooth, and we who work in this industry are laughing at the terminology. All right, back to business. So whenever you take your teeth, you're going to look at the back, and you're going to see numbers and the corresponding codes for the tooth. And you'll notice how shiny it is. It's very shiny, and it's not going to stick to acrylic well. So we're going to need to rough it up. And we're going to use a heatless stone. That's this wheel here. And we're just going to take our tooth, and we're going to grind the back of it with this stone. And that's going to help the acrylic adhere to the abrasive material. Alright, so I'm not sure how well you can actually see, but the shine's gone and the numbers have been taken off. And you're going to do that to all of your upper anteriors and your posteriors. Also, we're going to cut slots in these. I'll show you that. But first, let me show you how to identify your posteriors, because they're a little more difficult. Alright, so with posteriors, they have corresponding dots on the back of the tooth. So can't really get a great focus here, but the dots of the tooth will be on the side closest to the midline or the mesial. See if I can show you here on this tooth. Okay, you should be able to tell here there's two dots right there. And those two dots mean that this is the second molar. Okay? Those two dots go toward the midline again. That's how you're going to be able to tell where you place this tooth. Now, each of the other teeth have a corresponding dot as well. Okay? So it has two dots on it. That means it's the second. So guess what the first molar has? It's going to have one dot. Okay? All toward the midline. Now when you get to learn the shapes of the teeth better, you'll be able to tell more easily without having to worry about that. But again, I'm not going too deep into setting teeth here. I'm just going to move along. As you can see here, I'm just making another base plate, so I don't have to cut all the wax off of the old wax rim or bite block. I want to be able to save that. And plus, the dentist had to cut some of the bite block away, some of the base plate away, um, when trying it in the mouth. So I'm going to make another one that will help us to get this ready for a try-in. Alright, now lastly, I'm going to make sure and heat it up and form it and then seal it down good with wax. So this is a step that you don't want to overlook. Make sure this thing is sealed down correctly, because when you start to heat it up, setting teeth, it will warp the base plate if you're not careful. Alright, now I'm going to take the cutting disc. It's just a small cutting disc, and I'm going to cut slots in the back of the teeth. And you'll be able to see here, I'm cutting these slots in all of the anterior teeth, because that's going to help with retention. That acrylic's going to slide up in there and it's going to grab a hold of these teeth, so they're not likely to fall out. Alright, so this is a good time to talk about the different types of wax, because there is going to be a difference between base plate wax, between the wax rims, and the setting up. So first we want to take, though, the upper model, and you can tell I marked the line from the master model around the lower teeth. That way I not only have a midline, but I also have that line of where the master model teeth are biting in at. Now the type of wax I'm using here is called setup wax. It's harder and a little more sticky than the base plate wax we're going to use to wax the gum area. And again, I'm trying to keep this pretty basic. Now this is that full upper waxed and finished up for a try-in. Now I'm not skipping too far ahead. I'm going to show you the waxing, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So number one, that one and this one are try-ins, meaning they're going to have to come off of the model and be tried in to the patient's mouth to see how it fits. Now a finish, when we're finishing one down, we're going to bring this wax all the way down around here and seal it to the model to be processed or packed. You see, we want this try-in to be able to come off easily so that they can put it in and out of the patient's mouth easily, right? And we just want to make sure that it fits ahead of time. Now this one just came back. It's been tried in the patient's mouth. They liked it and they want to go ahead and finish it down or finish it up and pack it. So we're going to go ahead and do that for them. Now I want to just bring my wax, instead of cutting it off where it is, I want to bring it on down on the model. That way I can seal it down to the model and it doesn't move. Now we're going to start waxing. We're going to melt down the wax into the wax tray, and the type of wax we're going to use is a base plate wax. So this wax is going to mimic the gums in a mouth, and it's going to all be boiled off in the boil out tank, and it will become acrylic in the future. So we're just making a mimic of gums out of wax to be boiled off, and the mold will be left where to pack the acrylic. Sorry, I know this is basic for a lot of people, but for some people they're brand new and they're totally unfamiliar. So I'm just going to make sure and get my spatula hot enough to flow it in between these teeth. And then I'm going to take a piece of wax and I'm going to heat it up and I'm going to fold it. That way it doesn't take me all day to do this, because one part of the industry is you want to be quick. You don't want to take all day to do one. It's like a mechanic. If he takes an hour to do an oil change and only pays 2/10 of an hour to do an oil change, then he's falling behind. So I want to roll up some wax and heat it up and just basically press it into place. Next, I'm just going to go back in with my spatula and I'm going to seal it down between the teeth and around the edges. I just want to make sure that I flow it in there well, because I'm going to have to come back along with my chisel and chisel these teeth into the shape of gums. Okay, so after you seal in between these teeth well, you want to seal it down to the model, and then you want to thicken it up. You are thickening this up because you're going to want something to finish down in the end, right? You can always add to it if you need to, but it's easier just to take it off. So if you put a little more than what you might actually need, you'll have something to finish down and take off later. I'm doing the same on the back side, just heating it up and bringing it down on this framework. Okay, and now I'm going to start with chiseling. I'm using a Dixon 15 chisel, and I'm just chiseling, and then I come back and clean it up with the edge. So I'm just beveling it back and then cleaning it up. So I just want you to pay attention to the angle I'm using with this chisel. So I'm just like beveling it back, and basically I just don't want to create a food trap. So I'm beveling it at an angle. Some people can go in at too sharp an angle, and you'll leave a little undercut for food to get trapped in. So I'm just cleaning up around the outside, around the edge of this, and I'll come back and clean up the teeth with an alcohol torch later and make this thing smooth and sexy. I just want to thicken up any thin spots and make sure that it's thick enough to where I won't have to add to it later. Now we move around to the back of the tooth. We're just going to trim it up. We want to take down a little bit so that we can see the cusp or the edge of these teeth. Okay, so I just want to show a little bit of tooth here. And you can just feel inside your mouth to the inside of your teeth and tell that, like, how it should look is how the inside of your teeth feel for the most part. Alright, so I'm just going to spend some time cleaning this up around the teeth and then also around the framework, just getting that extra wax off the framework, sealing it back down, and just getting some of that off the teeth. Okay, now we want to clean it up and make it look sexy. We're going to use an alcohol torch. We're just going to get it hot, and it's going to blow fire right onto the wax and smooth it right up. So you can obviously see it just shines it up, smooths it up, and takes all that rough out of it, right? But it is also going to melt a little bit of wax back onto the tooth. So we'll just have to come back with a chisel or the edge of your spatula and take some of that wax off that the alcohol torch melted onto the tooth. You just want to clean it up and make it look like it should look in the mouth. All right, now we'll move on to the front teeth, the two centrals. Typically, I'll wait to the end until everything is waxed before I use the alcohol torch, but I just want to show you guys how to smooth it up. So we're just going to do the same thing here, just making sure that it's thick and sealed down properly. And we're just going to thicken it up and do the back as well. And then we will chisel it down. And I'll show you what I mean by food trap. Alright, so on this one you can see the difference between the two. This side has like a little lip basically that it can caught on. This one's feathered back. You see, you want it like that because you want when it bites in and food hits it, instead of getting caught up in these little edges here, you want it feathered back so that the food hits it and just goes right down past it. We call that a food trap, and you want to make sure of it. Not only there, but you can get stuck in between teeth. So you want to bring that line up between the two teeth as far as possible, but still look aesthetically pleasing. So you just want to make sure and clean it up, and then take your lower model, bite it into the top. That way you get a good contact, and then just flame it up, get it looking good, and move on to your next one. This is another try-in that came back. Dentist liked it, so we're going to seal it down and do the same thing with it. You guys, I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, please let me know. I appreciate everybody supporting the channel. I just want to add value to the dental lab world. And let me know what you want to see next.